What's up? Welcome back. Walking and Talking, episode 31. Welcome back to a rainy Staten Island. Once again, it's cold, it's wet, but we're out here because we're not stopping. Got freaked out. There was a piece of rubber on the ground, looked like a snake. Not that I'm scared of snakes. I just don't really want to have a snake right there. Freaks me out a little bit. So, with that, let's get into today's topic, which is infotainment systems. Every car now has one. Some are good, some are bad, some are anywhere in between. And I think that's kind of stupid because there are two really good options for infotainment: Apple Carplay, Android Auto. Why automakers aren't just slapping these things into their cars, and both systems, not just one, boggles my mind. I don't know why automakers aren't taking this cheap, simple option. I understand they want their branding, they want people to be roped into their system, their not their system, their ecosystem, their brand. I just think it's a little bit selfish on their part, and I think it's short-sighted because the customers are the ones who end up getting the worst experience in a lot of cases. For example, Lexus and Toyota are just adding Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Actually, I'm not even sure if they're adding both. I know they're adding Apple CarPlay. I'm not sure about Android Auto. Which basically means if you want Android Auto, you can't buy a Toyota. That's dumb. And why I say that's dumb is because these 5 reasons. And again, these aren't definitive. Some of these I'm not 100% sure on, but these are the 5 reasons why I really feel it's extremely short-sighted for automakers to continue to dump millions of dollars into developing their own infotainment and entertainment systems for their vehicles, instead of just licensing Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, popping it in, and hitting the road respectively. So, first and foremost is the user interface. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto use a very similar interface to the popular smartphone platforms. Considering the majority of Americans now have a smartphone, being either Android or iOS, the majority of car buyers are going to have one of these two options as far as their phone goes. And they're going to want to plug in their phone, so why not give them a system that they're familiar with? Having that familiar system instantly gives them a connection to a vehicle, makes it easier for them to use, easier to access the features available, and access their entertainment content the way they want to access it. It's kind of a no-brainer. Again, this is the whole problem with this, is I don't understand why this is not a thing. And why I think the automakers have been incredibly short-sighted with their design and where they're spending their money. Like Mercedes, BMW, they're investing in their own smart assistant. I have not the foggiest idea why they're doing that, because their systems are never going to have the same user base, they're not going to have the same amount of data, and they're not going to update as frequently because most of these cars don't have a built-in cellular modem that is constantly updating it like everyone's phone does. Yeah, sorry. That was a bit of a little ranty thing right there. But either way, I think having that familiar user interface is essential, and it's a huge plus for any consumer. So I really think automakers need to do it. And when you're shopping for your next vehicle, highly recommend looking for Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. Ideally, you want both, because you never know. You may switch back or forth depending on your phone, or maybe your spouse has an iPhone, you have an Android phone. Something really to consider when you're buying your next vehicle. And again, shop with your money. Tell the automakers with your wallet that you want both systems in your next vehicle. Trust me, they'll listen if their sales decline. But either way, I don't understand why automakers are spending all this money on these systems when there's a perfectly good option available to them for probably way less than it takes to develop and keep their system updated. But it is what it is. Next, it's the developers. that I think would benefit from having more Android Auto and Apple CarPlay capable vehicles. The reason I say developers would benefit is because I would think that with a bespoke system like Mercedes, their infotainment system, BMW's iDrive, or Ford's Sync system, Chrysler's Uconnect system as well, getting an app approved for that is probably pretty difficult. And then keeping that updated is also probably pretty challenging. Whereas Android Auto, when you update your app, I assume you can update the Android Auto or Apple CarPlay version of it. That simplified approval process probably makes those applications just better because they're more up to date, they're gonna have new features faster, and they're always gonna have the latest and greatest from that service. So if you're using Spotify, if you're using Apple Music, if you're using Google Maps, you're always gonna have that most up-to-date version, and I think that's a big deal. Next, let's talk about the phone itself. When we're talking about Android Auto and we're talking about Apple CarPlay, effectively what's happening is you're plugging your phone into your car and the phone is acting as the horsepower to drive the infotainment system. It gives you access to your cellular data, it gives you access to your cell phone, your calls and contacts and the rest of that. That additional horsepower means when you upgrade your phone, you're upgrading your car's infotainment system too. You go to a rental car, you've got the most up-to-date infotainment system as well. You buy a used car, your infotainment system is up to date. With Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, it's less about the tech in the car and it's more about how your tech integrates with the car. And I think being able to plug your phone in, having access to its features and its horsepower is a big plus. Because people update their phones way more frequently than they update their cars. And I think that's a pretty big deal. And I don't only mean the hardware there, I also mean the software. Because most cars, again, don't have a cellular data connection. Some Wi-Fi, some cars have a Wi-Fi connection, but when you park in a driveway or in a garage, sometimes your Wi-Fi service is not great. And it'd be kind of ridiculous to drive your car into the front lawn just to get a signal and update your car. Again, this may just be me, but I don't think so. And I think it's highly advantageous for car makers to really get behind the Android Auto and Apple CarPlay infotainment systems. Next, security. In that same vein, because these apps are updated more often, because the customer's data is really more housed on the phone than it is the car, I think security is way better. And when you're dealing with a lot of phone numbers, especially in something like a rental car, I think it's really important to have that kind of security, especially if you're a person who has a lot of important contacts that you don't want being available to the next person that rents your car. I think systems like Android Auto and Apple CarPlay really solve that problem and make it a much more secure connection. It should work better, and that's why I think it is a shame that some cars don't come with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. And last but not least, I don't want to say the dumb, like the last piece of it is, and this kind of goes back to the developer part too, is the accessibility of apps. If you look at Sync, you look at Mercedes-Benz, you look at BMW iDrive, the app selection from each of those is not only different, but pretty limited in comparison. If you're using Spotify, if you're using Apple Music, you want to be able to access that content everywhere. And if you can't access that content easily through your car's infotainment system, what's the point? With a lot of people using their cars very frequently for long trips, you want access to your music. And if you can't access that on your car, that's a big, big problem. And it's why I still see a lot of people using like just the Bluetooth connection and not like linking their phone to their car's audio system or infotainment system. It just, I don't know why more automakers don't just switch over. That's, I mean, the moral of this. This is kind of me just ranting about reasons why automakers need to switch, and why when you're shopping for your next car, you really should look for Android Auto or Apple CarPlay availability. That simple. So with that, I'm gonna continue my walk. I'm getting drenched, but it's been a good day either way. I'm gonna get my steps in, hit my goal, and I will see you all tomorrow. Peace, bye.